Happy Monday, Miami Dolphins fans. Welcome into Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nic Rohloff, and we have a lot to discuss here on January 12th because following the weekend action in Wild Card Weekend in the NFL playoffs, there is a lot of buzz in the head coaching search, not only for the Miami Dolphins, but for every team across the National Football League. John Harbaugh just finished up his first official interview. We know this is going to be a drawn-out and highly decorated process. The Atlanta Falcons were the first team to get him in for an interview. We'll talk about what that means for Miami's potential future in getting John Harbaugh, what other head coaches Miami requested to interview, and who they could actually hire here over the next 2 to 3 weeks to be the official Mike McDaniel replacement. We're going to have that all alongside a perfect offseason plan for the Miami Dolphins. If you were with us last Monday, we did this video, but, well, with all the news that happened, we never were able to put it out. We're going to give our hand at that again, and we'll also talk about a surprising but also makes a lot of sense trade target for Miami this upcoming offseason. But before we get into all of that, let's welcome in producer Coop into the show. Also, shout out your city for me down in the comment section. How is everybody doing? Coop, how are you doing?
I am good, and I'm really hoping that this time we film Perfect Offseason that we'll actually be able to put it out.
Yeah, listen, we'll kind of tease why we weren't able to put it out when we filmed the video, but last Monday, we filmed the video that was planning on going Wednesday morning, and it was going to be Perfect Offseason plan. Step 1 was hire Jon-Eric Sullivan as GM.
Done.
Step 2 was fire Mike McDaniel as head coach. And
Done.
as Tuesday went on and Wednesday morning, when I was going to put out the video, was Wednesday morning, there was so many news and rumor tidbits about the head coaching search, the GM cycle, to where I was like, all right, let's push back this perfect offseason just another, 12 hours, and then there was more news that were like, oh, well, we can't put it out now, and then Mike McDaniel gets fired Thursday, Jon-Eric Sullivan gets hired Friday, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, that video's not going out, obviously, so we'll have a advised version or a revised version now that we have our GM in place and Mike McDaniel officially gone. But shout out to everybody in the building. We got people in Augusta, Georgia, Tampa, Florida, Broward County, Rocky Top, Tennessee, Rochester, New York. How about it?
The 585.
Yeah, it's Stuttgart, Germany. Oh, we got a lot to talk about here. Miami, Anchorage, Alaska. How about that one?
That's
Coop?
pretty sick.
How about that one, Coop? Is it like now when Alaska, there's no sun for
Yes.
2 months or whatever?
Yeah, there's no sunlight. Probably until the end of January.
Dang, that's crazy. Talladega, Alabama, Sky in Kentucky, Mike Nintendo Master in Wake Forest, Raleigh, Durham. That's a lot of different places. Sacramento, Miami, Long Island, Front Royal, Virginia. Okay. All right, before we get into the actual news, let me know. I'm not surprised on who is leading our live poll, Coop, but I gave 4 different options in our live poll on who do you want to be the next Dolphins head coach. John Harbaugh, Robert Saleh, Kevin Stefanski, and Chris Shula.
These results do not surprise me whatsoever.
I'll say this. The person who is in second place surprises me in a little bit. But let me know in the live chat, who do you want to be the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins? 64% of our live poll has John Harbaugh as their top option. I see that's what most people are saying in the live chat as well. That does not surprise me. I think he is everybody's number one option, mine included. But what does surprise me, Mr. Coop, before you get to what you're going to say, is Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for the Rams, is ahead of both Robert Saleh and Kevin Stefanski as potential head coach options for Miami. I like Shula. I wonder how much it has to do with the last name that he has rather than the actual coaching ability. I'm not discrediting his ability to coach. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. But do I think he is a better defensive coordinator than Robert Saleh? I don't think so. I know Saleh didn't have success in New York, but I'd like to give him another shot. I don't know. What were you going to say, though, Coach?
No, I do think that's why Dolphins fans have him at number 2 in our live poll, is because of the last name. And I get it. I mean, people want to keep it in the family, so that makes sense. And I do think Shula would be a decent option, but the Dolphins are probably looking for someone with head coaching experience who can go stable this ship. And I think Harbaugh would be their top option. Now, the question is, are the Dolphins Harbaugh's top option? And it does sound like there's reports that it's more going to be sort of a reverse interview where Harbaugh's going to be interviewing the teams and picking the best spot for him. So hopefully the Dolphins can wow him.
Yeah, very rarely do you have a head coach candidate so good and so, I don't know, storied, if you will, that when they're available to be hired, it's more of the teams having to present why Harbaugh should become their head coach rather than the team interviewing the potential candidate. It's absolutely fascinating. So when Miami hopefully brings Harbaugh in for an interview, they got to have some material lined up on why Harbaugh should want to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. There's other teams out there that have just as, if not a better proposal, if you will, due to having cap space this offseason, high draft picks, young quarterback, good roster in place. There's a lot of different selling points here for John Harbaugh. But let me know. Fill in the blank. The Dolphins have a blank % chance of hiring John Harbaugh.
22.
Mark has it at 0. D-Rock at 20. Nintendo at 37%. I see 12%, 5%, 35, 30, 30, 50, 15, 30%, 16%. I think all of you guys are in the right ballpark. I'm glad nobody to this point has put a number higher than 50%.
Agreed.
Well, now someone has. But I would probably ballpark it, Mr. Coop, I would say at 15%.
Yeah, that's kind of the range I'm at. Like, I would say at the high end, 25%. I do think the Dolphins are on the outside looking in here, but man, if they're able to hire him, I think that would be such a great move for the organization. Not to say there aren't other good options out there, but for what the Dolphins need right now, I think he is clear-cut, no questions asked, the best option out there.
Yeah, Harbaugh's number one, but I just think when you go through the list of teams that could get John Harbaugh, I would put like the Giants at 60%.
Yes.
I would put the Falcons at 20%.
You'd put Falcons ahead of us.
I would put the Falcons at 20%. I'd put Miami at 15%. That takes us to a 95% pie here. And then the last 5% I'm going to hand out to the Tennessee Titans. I think it's one of those 4 teams. Unless we hear like the Eagles fire their head coach or Matt LaFleur over the next 24 hours. Like those 4 teams make up the entire pie chart for Harbaugh, in my opinion. And that's why I'm giving it 60% New York, 20% Atlanta, 15% Miami, 5% Tennessee.
I've seen a lot of buzz about the Titans. What makes the Titans even involved in this race?
Because the owner is going to be aggressive. They have a lot of cap space. And when you actually factor in those 4 teams that we just mentioned, I think without a question, if you had to pick a quarterback to build around, it would be Cam Ward, former first overall pick. And Jackson Dart had a pretty good rookie year in New York. When you watch the tape and you watch the film, what Cam Ward was able to do at times in the off-platform throws, the tight window throws, with the weapons he was dealing with. I know the Giants didn't have the best supporting cast, but Cam Ward was throwing the Chumadike and, no offense, Xavier Restrepo with no running game and a bottom 10 O-line. Yet he was out there making some big-time throws and some big-time moments. So I do think the Titans are intriguing. I don't think he goes there, but they're definitely in the mix, in my opinion.
They're going to they just need a major roster overhaul, essentially. But I guess they can do that with their cap space.
Top 10 pick. I mean, I would anticipate them going with a weapon. I mean, they need a lot.
They can go with whatever. Yeah.
But like a Jordan Tyson, a Carnell Tate, one of the top offensive linemen, whether it's Amari Goa or Spencer Fanu, to kind of help protect. Whatever their first-round pick is, I'd imagine it's helping Cam Ward in some degree. Maybe use some of that cap space they have to build out a baseline defensively. And I'll say they start to see what they can build.
Do they try to make like a splash trade for a receiver that could become available?
Listen, I've said this. Now, it won't happen. I tweeted it out yesterday,
Brown.
which is why you follow me on Twitter. Not A.J. Brown. Brian Thomas Jr.
Ooh.
I think, and I would be going on the record to say this, and I know some people have probably mentioned in the past, I am going to act as if I am the first person to really start this train because I don't see many people talking about it. I would be willing to go to my grave saying Brian Thomas Jr. is traded this offseason, and here is why. The Jags just extended Jacoby Myers.
Yep.
Parker Washington looks like a budding superstar. Really was one of the top targets for Trevor Lawrence in the last month or so. Had over 7 catches and 100 yards against the Bills on Sunday. And you have Travis Hunter returning from injury next year. Brian Thomas Jr. fell out of favor with the coaching staff. Kind of fell out of favor with Trevor Lawrence. Still has a couple years left on his first-round rookie contract. The Jacksonville Jaguars, by the way, have little to no cap space this year. Massive free agents hitting the open market, and no first-round pick because of the trade they made last year to get Travis Hunter.
Ooh.
They need to recoup draft capital. Brian Thomas Jr. has fell down the depth chart. I think he gets traded this offseason, and I would be willing to say he probably goes for a second-round pick. That's something Tennessee might be interested in. Heck, I would even suggest maybe Miami pick up the phone there.
I like that. That's a good shout there.
I think Brian Thomas Jr. gets traded this offseason without a question, and there will be a lot of teams lining up for him. Buffalo, I think, would be very interested. New England is probably a really good fit for him. Pittsburgh is going to be always interested in a wide receiver. I think Miami should at least call. I think that would be a really good fit with Jalen Waddle, and you just have to find out the price point. It would just be fascinating to see.
I like that. That's an interesting call. Harbaugh, either way, will have his pick of the litter wherever he wants to go. He's going to go to whatever situation is right for him. I kind of hope it's the Miami Dolphins, but that remains to be seen.
I think Brian Thomas Jr. is an absolute dog.
He had a down year for sure, but again, a lot of mitigating factors there, so who's to say he can't bounce back?
Yeah. All right, we want to get into the news on today's show, but make sure you hit that thumbs up icon here. You want the real show to start, we got to get the like number up.
Great audience today.
We got over 300 people in the building. Shout out to everybody hanging out with us here as we're going to get into the latest news on the Dolphins head coaching search here in just a moment. But let's get that like number up. Let's get to 140. I like that number set by producer Coop. We're currently at 71, so we need 69 very nice likes to get there. I see Cryptic bringing out a St. Boniver reference.
You guys are cooked.
Going, Mark Schmidt will make the trade. Mark Schmidt's got to worry about getting the right rotations. How about we get worried about defending the perimeter? We can't defend a soul. Losing to Fordham at home on Saturday
9.5-point favorites
is an absolute travesty.
He has to go, but apparently he's got 1 year left on his deal.
The Bonaventure Bonnies should not extend him. They should be looking to get a new head coach.
And I'm told there is no world where you guys actually fire him.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Do you tell him to retire after this year? And if you tell him, will he do it?
Yeah, I don't know.
But our guy is already the coach of USF, his replacement.
Yeah, Brian Hodgson.
Yeah.
Brian Hodgson.
So where are we going to go from there?
Yeah, we don't have an option.
Now, my sources tell me that Bobby Hurley could be in play.
That wouldn't surprise me. All right, we're 20. Let's. You know what? I'm going to lower it down here. Let's get to 120 likes. We're at 98. So we're 20 likes away. Hit that thumbs up button. Let's get to 120 likes.
Did I overcook it?
You know, I'm just bringing it down because I'm feeling generous today. We get to 120 likes. We'll start today's live show. Coop, why don't we tell the people what's coming up here on the live show? Because there's a lot here. We got the latest head coach news and rumors on John Harbaugh. Are the Dolphins already out of the running? Did they request an interview with Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter? Who else are they interested in? We'll get to that. I'll go through my perfect Dolphins offseason plan. We did this exercise last Monday, but we weren't able to put out the video because we were too right, and it got out there and news-wise too quickly.
We were just too good at our jobs.
Yeah, we were too good at our jobs. And then a surprise Dolphins QB trade target. A lot of people are going to talk about signing Malik Willis in free agency. What about a trade target that is not Mac Jones this offseason? We're going to get to that. Over 330 people watching. Appreciate you guys for tuning in here. We got over 120 likes. Let's get it going.
We'll get it going. There's just a hilarious comment from Serge. Why do you hate most of – who do you hate most on the Dolphins? I think it's Tua.
No, I think at this point, I don't hate any of them as people. I want that very clear.
No, of course not.
As contributors to the Miami Dolphins football team, I think currently it is Jonas Avianaya.
Yeah, that's very fair.
So bad. But that's a conversation for a different day. I mean, if you're asking me about hating as a person, I don't know any of them personally, so it's hard to comment on that. But just based off past issues off the field, the person I would imagine I dislike the most as an individual is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty fair
Just
assessment.
because of the legal issues that have arisen at times. But I can't say I hate someone if I've never met them. But I can hate how these guys play on a football field, and that would take me to Jonas Avianaya.
That's a very measured take by you.
Thank you. I feel very measured today.
Yeah, I like that.
Not too high, not too low. Very calm.
Even keel.
Very even keel today.
You're like Quinn Ewers. Next play.
Yeah, next play. Move on. All right, Coop, when you're ready, let's get into the first segment with the latest coaching news on the Miami Dolphins. This one is a little GLD sponsor, which is fun. All right, Coop's just getting us lined up, and we'll get rocking and rolling. Here we go. Major update on John Harbaugh and his potential sweepstakes, if you will, over the next couple weeks as he looks for his next head coaching gig in the NFL. I'm Nic Rohloff. Are the Dolphins out of the running? I don't think that's the case, but Connor J. Hughes, who covers both the Jets and Giants for New York media, reported late Sunday night, early Monday morning, I forget, that Harbaugh is believed to be down to the Giants and Falcons already as his next team, which made a lot of people on Dolphins Twitter ask the question, do we already have no chance at hiring John Harbaugh as our next head coach? I am here to tell you right away, I think that is incredibly false, but we are going to talk about it on today's show. Do not get it twisted. Despite the propaganda by the New York media, the Dolphins will get a shot at Harbaugh. Now, how large is the shot? I don't know. But I can almost virtually guarantee that Miami will get a chance to interview John Harbaugh. I think that has been alluded to. There is no set interview in stone, if you will, on when they are going to talk to him. But I just know they will. The relationship between Stephen Ross and the Harbaugh family is just too strong and too good for Miami to not at least get a seat at the dinner table. And we'll talk about the latest here in a second. But make sure you do join the family. Subscribe today. We're about 40 subscribers away from 79,600. A lot of new faces here at the channel. Very appreciated. We're going to continue to bring you daily content and let you know the latest on the Dolphins head coaching search. But to back up that report, if you will, from Connor Hughes, the Falcons on Monday were the first team to complete an interview with John Harbaugh, which actually flew underneath the radar in fascinating fashion. You would think with this new age media, there would be a report out there, whether it's from Pelissero, Rappaport, Schefter, that detailed the entire week interview process in timing for Harbaugh. Well, the Atlanta Falcons just tweeted out on their own merit that they completed an interview with John Harbaugh as a potential head coach candidate on Monday afternoon with no inklings about it. And Schefter followed up the report by saying that Harbaugh has had preliminary and extensive phone calls with the Giants, Titans, Browns, Raiders, and Cardinals, and is still determining on who to meet with. Now, the initial reaction here was, oh my goodness, the Dolphins weren't listed. Or are they actually out of the running, like Connor Hughes may have alluded to in that tweet we showed earlier and off the top of the episode? Well, Barry Jackson has reported since then that Miami has still stayed in contact with Harbaugh over the last couple of days. And Albert Breer also reported that he still believes Miami is going to have an interview with John Harbaugh. But Albert Breer also reported in an article on Sunday night, Monday morning, that Harbaugh spent the entire weekend assembling a staff and preparing for interviews this week. And he reported that he'll take interviews with the Giants, Dolphins, Falcons, and Titans. And those are the four teams most likely to have a shot at landing John Harbaugh. We will see a very deliberate process when it comes to the former coach of the year and Super Bowl winning head coach. He will take his time. He will not rush anything. He will pick the landing spots that he would be interested in going to, what teams have the brightest future and are the best fits for him, and then interview there and then ultimately decide. We are in a very rare case here where the teams looking for a head coach are actually pitching themselves to the candidate rather than the teams interviewing the candidate. That's the level of coach that John Harbaugh is. And you might wonder, how is Miami going to compete with teams like the Falcons, Giants, and Titans in wooing John Harbaugh to become their next head coach? Well, why Miami is interesting. I think you could have a strong relationship with the GM. Would it have been as strong if you hired Chad Alexander, who worked with Harbaugh for 10 plus years? No, it would not have. But Jon-Eric Sullivan is a guy well respected across the league who values scouting. And I think if you interviewed Harbaugh, you would make the pitch that Harbaugh could have not all, but some power in terms of roster construction, free agent signings, and draft picks. That's something you can pitch. You also have a long runway for success in Miami. We saw Chris Breer be the GM for 10 years, Mike McDaniel here for 4 years, and not any successes to kind of show for it. So you don't got to worry about job security that often with Stephen Ross as your owner. And I think the two that is the most enticing for Harbaugh, are you going to be very competitive in 2026? No. But you could have $127 million in cap space for 2027, and Harbaugh gets to handpick his next quarterback of the future with the draft, with free agency, the trade market, and really reshape the roster in a 2-year span to fit your liking so you can contend for a Super Bowl in 2028 and 2029. Can you guarantee that you're going to have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl because you reshape the roster and your image with other teams in 3 years from now? No, you can't guarantee that. But Harbaugh would have his type of roster in place in 2028 and 29 if he came to Miami. So, fill in the blank for me. Miami has a blank chance at hiring John Harbaugh. Pin comment on today's show. Let me know your thoughts. Here's my prediction as we shift away from Harbaugh after this. I do not think Miami is out of the race. The Dolphins will absolutely have an interview with John Harbaugh, but I do not think they ultimately land him. I do think he goes to the Giants. Right now on DraftKings, they are minus 230 to be John Harbaugh's next team, which is just wild odds in this landscape. Owner John Mara wants him in a bad way. There are a lot of intriguing pieces there in New York. Jackson Dart, cap space, top 10 pick, a very solid defensive line. I think Harbaugh goes to the Giants, but I do want to make it clear Miami and Stephen Ross will still have a chance to potentially woo him away from New York into the South Beach Miami Dolphins. Let's move on here because there's another head coaching candidate that I expect Miami to show interest in, and that would be Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. But it was reported that the Raiders, Titans, Ravens, and Browns all sent requests for interviews to the Chargers today for Jesse Minter. But as you can see in this tweet from Schultz, no Miami Dolphins, which surprises me in a massive way because Minter is one of the top first-time head coaching candidates out there. The Chargers defense under Minter has been absolutely elite, and we'll get to the details on that defense in just a second. And with his connection to Michigan and Stephen Ross, you would imagine Miami would have been lining up right away to get an interview scheduled, but they were not. More coming here, but today's show is brought to you by GLD, and I get it, fellas. Let's be real here. Buying men's jewelry used to be a nightmare. Low-quality junk that snapped after a week, or it was insanely overpriced with ridiculous markups. That's why I rock with GLD. You're getting quality pieces that are built to last without breaking the bank, and for a limited time only, new customers are getting an insane deal when you use code CHAT. You get 50% off at GLD.com. GLD has an official collab with the NFL, so you can get every NFL team on a pendant this season. They also have collabs with NBA, MLB, NCAA, and even DC Comics. Chains and pendants that let you rep what you love. You can also create custom pieces. GLD can bring it to life. You see one on screen. You see one in studio. This Dolphins pendant with the silver chain. You can get it in gold. You can get it in different sizes, in different styles. It is real quality. You can feel it in your hands. Work hard and change the game. For a limited time only, new customers get an insane deal. Use code CHAT to get 50% off at GLD.com. That's 50% off with code CHAT at GLD.com. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. As we get back to talking about Jesse Minter here, we've highlighted him on the show over the last week a lot, ever since they fired Mike McDaniel. And I'm going to continue to bring up that Michigan connection. Stephen Ross is just one of the biggest Michigan alums and donors out there. So you would imagine Ross would be intrigued with bringing in a defensive coordinator from Michigan who ultimately won a national championship with the Wolverines. But he has been so good with the Chargers this year and in his first year as defensive coordinator. Back-to-back years inside the top 10 in points per game. Back-to-back years in the top half of yards, rushing yards, and passing yards. And I think Minter's just a phenomenal coach. And even though the Chargers lost to the Patriots on Sunday night in the wild card round, I don't put any blame on Jesse Minter. That's for sure. The offense and Justin Herbert are absolutely atrocious. Now, when you think about Jesse Minter as a head coaching candidate for Miami, you do wonder about the other stuff. Will the defense be very good? I believe it would. But you would have to nail the offensive coordinator hire, and that is a little bit of a concern for me because there isn't really any established connections inside the NFL for Jesse Minter. Like, you think of other defensive-minded head coach candidates like a Robert Saleh, a Chris Shula, Brian Flores. There are offensive coordinators that you can see joining them. Right, you can, like someone from the McVay system, someone from the Shanahan system, someone from the LaFleur system. You don't have that with Jesse Minter. And that is a little bit of a concern, although I do view him as a very good head coaching candidate. Other potential candidates out there. Well, these ones are much more concrete, folks. These are the 6 names that Miami have requested to interview or expressed interest in. Saleh, Hafley, obviously connected there with Jon-Eric Sullivan, Kevin Stefanski, Harbaugh, Chris Shula, and Klint Kubiak. We talked about it on our video Monday morning, but if you are not aware, Klint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator of Seattle, is actually the only candidate to complete an interview for the Dolphins head coaching position. They did that so if he is eliminated or makes it to the Super Bowl, they could interview him in person at the earliest if he went to the Super Bowl during Super Bowl week on that first week after conference championship weekend when there is that little bye. But I do want to also let you know that there are interesting reports out there that Miami will show interest in Mike McCarthy as well, former Packers head coach, former Cowboys head coach. I think he is a good candidate. Is he the most high ceiling candidate out there? No. But when you talk about raising a floor and giving Miami a chance to turn things around and establish a culture and an identity over the next 2 to 3 years, I think Mike McCarthy is a very good option and one Miami should absolutely be interviewing. I also want to mention this, and this is fun too. There is predictive sports markets out there about who the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins could be. And right now, the overwhelming favorite is Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley at 31%. A lot of people are connecting the dots. Jon-Eric Sullivan, the new GM of Miami, coming from Green Bay, obviously overlapped the last 2 years with Hafley as DC. The Packers defense has been a top 10 unit in the NFL over the past couple of years. I know they didn't have the best second half against Chicago this past Saturday night, but with no Micah Parsons, I think Hafley has done a tremendous job down the stretch here. I think Hafley's a good option. But I do think it's interesting to see some of these other names here on the top 5 in terms of percentage of next head coach. The one that's fascinating to me is Vance Joseph, because you'd imagine if Miami was actually interested in hiring Vance Joseph as head coach, they would have tried to get him in for an interview late this past weekend for the same reasons we mentioned with Klint Kubiak. Vance Joseph, because he was on a bye, he is not eligible to interview with a team this week, which means the earliest you could interview Vance Joseph for your head coaching vacancy is either when they get eliminated from the playoffs or that week in between the conference championship week and then that Pro Bowl weekend as well. So Vance Joseph, if you're going to have him interview, it's probably not going to happen for a while, at least a week, and especially if the Broncos win again Saturday against the Bills, well, then you would have to wait another potential week to interview Vance Joseph. So I don't know if he's going to get the job unless Miami's totally fine with waiting on him throughout this next 2 or 3 week process. And we'll keep you updated on the entire process. A lot of information on today's show. It's going to be a lot to digest over the next week or so, but make sure you subscribe because we'll keep you updated on every single thing. Woo! First segment down, Mr. Coop.
A lot of information, ever-changing information coming out about this Dolphins coaching search.
I mean, everything changes.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me by the end of the day if we got another update on someone they're interviewing or whatnot. I do think that there's a lot of good candidates out there, and honestly, whoever the Dolphins end up with, I think they're going to end up with a good football coach.
I hope so.
I do believe that. I'll be fascinated to see if it is Jeff Hafley, who they end up going with for for offensive coordinator. You have to assume that Hafley will. I mean, maybe it's dangerous to assume that Hafley would be in charge of the defense and calling plays.
Yeah.
Unless the Dolphins are really looking for a CEO-type head coach who is just overseeing everything, which is entirely possible. I've always said I'm of the opinion that the CEO coach is probably better than the defensive or offensive play caller, but we'll see what Jon-Eric Sullivan wants to do.
I mean, it's interesting. I will say there isn't a lot of CEO head coaches out there. When you really think about it, most of them specialize in one side of the ball.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the one that doesn't, Harbaugh.
Yeah, he's a CEO, which is interesting, but he's a rarity these days. Like Mike Vrabel, that's a rarity.
Yeah.
Like, you go through the head coaches,
but
in
even
the
when
NFL,
you think Vrabel, you think defense. I mean, maybe that's just because he played it, but
well, he was a coordinator at one point.
Yeah.
But he doesn't call plays. He never did in Tennessee. Like, you think about the NFL teams out there and the ones with actual jobs, and even just the one in the playoffs, Coop. Like, think about the Bengals. Zach Taylor, offensive-minded. Tomlin, CEO, so there's a rarity. But D'Amico Ryans, DC.
Yep.
Steichen, offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Super offensive-minded, calls plays. Jaguars, Liam Cohen, calls offensive plays. Titans, they're in a flux, obviously. Buffalo, Sean McDermott, defensive guy, defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn, defense.
Stinks.
Sean Payton, offense. Andy Reid, offense. Jim Harbaugh, CEO, over there.
Defense guy, though.
Yeah, but CEO at this point in his career.
I believe John Harbaugh, before he got a head coaching job, was actually a special teams
with
coordinator.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, okay.
Philadelphia. But, like, McVay calls plays.
Yep.
McDonald, defensive coordinator. Calls plays, I'm pretty sure. 49ers, Shanahan. Dan Quinn, defense.
Now, Dan Quinn tried to be CEO this year, and it didn't work out.
It didn't work out. So
that's actually interesting when you look at across the league. I would have thought it was closer to maybe a third, but feels like it's closer to half.
Of what?
Guys who are like calling plays and specializing on their side.
Gotcha. Not a lot, Coop. Not a lot.
No, not a lot.
By the way, how about what was I gonna say? I forgot.
I don't know what you were going for either.
There was something I was gonna say. I could not recall. Oh, how about Brooks Koepka? That's what it was.
Yeah, I mean that's good stuff right there.
Good for Brooksy.
And good for the PGA for letting him back in.
Did you see the stipulations? Did you read that though?
No.
Oh my god. Like, it's called the Player Returnment Program, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like
that they made for him, basically.
Well, him, Bryson, Rahm, Cam Smith, and there's one more. Yeah, DeChambeau, Rahm, Cam Smith, Koepka, and there's one more that qualifies for it, I think.
Phil?
No. But, like, they have to pay $5 million to a charity. They
That's hilarious.
aren't eligible to earn FedEx Cup money for 2026. 2027 beyond, yes, but 2026
really?
no FedEx Cup money. They aren't entitled to the player something program, which basically more money for players. They aren't allowed to get any of that, which apparently is potential up to $50 to $85 million. Not for one person, but just in overall.
Yeah.
Based on results. And, yeah, there's just a ton of stipulations, but obviously Brooks Koepka was like, I don't give a shit. I got a lot of money. I want to go play meaningful golf again.
So basically, the only thing he can get paid on is prize money, essentially. Wow.
And his sponsorship, of course. But
still, that's crazy. Good for him, though.
Yeah.
It's a good day for the sport.
PJ and Liv they're supposed to merge, but they never did.
Yeah, there was that agreement.
Yeah, they never did.
Last year, but yeah.
Up,
Rory wasn't letting that happen.
Yeah, what's up, MBW? Well, you know what? That's why.
Absolutely.
The PGA Tour was probably so happy to get him back, but because they knew they were going to get other people up in arms to be like, oh, they just left and came back with no penalty. Like, what the heck?
Exactly.
They're like, they had to force some sort of penalty to make it all right that they could return.
$5 million to charity. I bet Brooks has his own charity that he'll just donate $5
million.
No,
it's $5 million to the tour, and then the tour puts it to charity.
Oh, okay.
That's what it said in the press release.
No, that makes sense. What up, MDW?
All right, let's get into the perfect Dolphins
Part 2.
offseason plan. Lot to talk about here. Over 333 people watching. Appreciate everybody for hanging out. Let's get into the Dolphins' perfect offseason plan here, according to us at Dolphins Today. The Dolphins hired a GM last Friday, Jon-Eric Sullivan. They don't have a head coach spot filled, though, yet. And on today's show, we're going to take a look at the perfect Miami Dolphins offseason now that we have a GM hired. And I think I want to start here, though. It's because this is not the first time I'm filming this video. I filmed perfect offseason plan for the Miami Dolphins right after the season ended on Monday, January 5th. And my first two steps was to hire Jon-Eric Sullivan as GM and fire Mike McDaniel as head coach. And you know what? We're off to a tremendous start because Jon-Eric Sullivan's our new GM and Mike McDaniel was canned. Now you'll see these three steps, and we'll get into these three steps, but there's another step that has to happen before these three, which we'll get to here in a second. But make sure you follow me over on social media because I got you covered with every single piece of Dolphins news or rumors that you need when it comes to draft, trade, free agency, the head coaching search. Follow me at Nic_Rohloff. But in my perfect offseason plan, step one, now that you have a GM in place, find that head coach, and it is no one other than John Harbaugh. There is no question about it. He is the top head coaching candidate for the Miami Dolphins. Simply put, a winner. And I know that he has not gotten over the hump in the last 5 to 6 years with Lamar Jackson at QB, but you can't dispute a career 60.8% winning percentage. You can't dispute his championship ring he got back in the day with Joe Flacco, and then his Coach of the Year award in 2019. Now, do I think that he is going to be the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins? I do not. I said this on Monday afternoon. I ultimately do believe he lands with the New York Giants because it just seems like they're the most aggressive team for him. They also seem like they have a little bit of a better pitch to Harbaugh than Miami at this point. But if you're asking me to script out a perfect plan for Harbaugh or for Miami this offseason, I don't know how you don't have John Harbaugh as that top head coaching target. Now, let's just say, hypothetically, Harbaugh does go to the New York Giants. You want to know who my number 2 option is for Miami? And I've been pretty consistent in my thought on this. It's not Jeff Hafley of Green Bay, even though that's a good option. It's not Chris Shula from Los Angeles or Jesse Minter from the Chargers. It is no one other than the San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator, former New York Jets head coach, Robert Saleh. I have identified him as a really good option for the Fins because he is someone who motivates. He is someone who has his players enjoy playing for him. And he is such a good defensive coordinator that gets the most out of his guys. I'd like to bring that to Miami. Sure, there are some issues with Robert Saleh, which we'll touch on here in a second, but I think he would be a good, solid hire for the Miami Dolphins. And let me know, no John Harbaugh for Miami, he goes elsewhere. Would you be fine with hiring Robert Saleh as head coach? Type Y for yes or type N for no. The raw numbers are not pretty, right? 20-36 career record as the Jets head coach across 3.5 seasons. Not even 3.5. He got fired after 5 games in the 2024 season. Took the rest of the year off, and then obviously this year with the Niners as the defensive coordinator. But here's the part that's so fascinating to me. He took over as head coach after the 2020 season, so right as the 2021 season started. So his first year was 2021. Look at the improvements defensively. They went from the worst defense in the NFL, right? It's not even a question, to the top 5 defense and then a top 10 defense in both yards per game and points per game. So you saw improvement right away defensively. The ability for Robert Saleh to identify a talent in the NFL draft, the ability to identify a talent in free agency is critical in terms of your head coach especially if he is prioritizing one side of the football. And no matter what you can say about Robert Saleh, you can say he can coach defense, he can identify talent. Now, the issue is the offense, because as the defense improved every year, the offense never did. Now, you can blame a million different things for this. You can blame Aaron Rodgers. You can blame Zach Wilson, who never really panned out. You can blame never having the right offensive coordinator. And I will admit that. If you hire Robert Saleh as head coach, there is a very, very concerning move that would need to follow. And that would be, who is your offensive coordinator? If you get someone who is really smart, really offensively talented, that can coach and call plays, I think it's going to work out really well. But if you have the same type of issues that you had in New York, I think they had a LaFleur, I forget what his name is, Mike LaFleur, as offensive coordinator. He was a train wreck. They had another guy, absolutely a disaster. You would need to have a really solid offensive coordinator as that guy to kind of steady the ship on that side of the football field, and that would be the most difficult thing, honestly, for Robert Saleh. Well, number 2 in my offseason plan, and you're going to see a lot of the same stuff that you saw off the top of the show in my plan, but I want to rehash those thoughts because, well, you guys never saw the video initially. Step 2 after hiring John Harbaugh is to kind of cut Tua and clear the deck with some of your other veterans. Tua's not playing a snap again for the Miami Dolphins. It's just a matter of how they move off of him. Are they going to cut him prior to June 1st, or are they going to cut him after June 1st? Because they're not going to find a trade partner. They're just not. And the difference is the dead cap in cap savings over the next 2 years. It would be a historic dead cap hit if you released him prior to June 1st, $99.2 million. But look at the difference in 2027 cap space for Miami. It's a difference of $32 million. That is why I am fine cutting Tua prior to June 1st. I am someone who kind of understands that Miami is not going to be that competitive in the NFL in 2026. Tough schedule, a lot of overturn in the front office, coaching staff, roster. Like, you're not going to be competing. So, yes, if you cut Tua prior to June 1st, the dead cap would be an NFL high in history, and you would be at negative $58.4 million in cap space for 2026. You have other avenues to get back into the positive, and it also gives you the ability to have as much flexibility in cap space in 2027 to really upgrade the roster from there. And we'll talk about those potential moves here in a second. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The playoff action continues on in football. Elite hoops every night. And if you want to get on player picks and daily fantasy for the first time, Prize Picks is the best place to do so. They let you take control. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. Available in all 50 states, so you aren't left out. Already got an entry in for next week's divisional round action. Less than Brock Purdy passing yards in that game against Seattle. More than Matthew Stafford passing yards. This one's a little dicey in the cold against Chicago, but I feel good about it. Less than Bo Nix passing yards in that game against the Bills as well. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. I mentioned you are going to have to create cap space in some regard, especially if you are in the negative $58.4 million range by cutting Tua prior to June 1st. Well, you have 3 people that could be released with a post-June 1st 1 designation. Now, you could only do it twice in, let's just say, February or March and get the cap space later on, you can only do that twice. I think Tyreek Hill will absolutely be one of them. You get $36 million in savings if you cut him post June 1st. You get $25 or $26 million if you cut him prior to June 1st. I think Bradley Chubb is another option where you get $20.2 million in savings with a post-June 1st release. Now, just because you could only designate 2 of them in the future doesn't mean you could only cut 2 players post-June 1st. You could do it with Austin Jackson, who is incapable of staying on the football field, and the new regime might want to replace at the right tackle position, and get $11.5 million in cap space with a post-June 1st designation. But you also can cut Jason Sanders, Tyrell Dodson, Alec Ingold, all prior to June 1st and create just about $10 million in cap space. Now, do I think Miami is going to cut all 7 players, Tua and the 6 you just saw on screen? I do think it's more likely that they cut all of them than none of them, but I don't anticipate all 7 players being released by Miami's new regime. But hypothetically, if you did, Tua prior to June 1st, Tyreek, Bradley Chubb, Austin Jackson post-June 1st, and then the other 3 veterans prior to June 1st, you would then have $19.2 million in cap space. Is that a lot when you have to add close to 20, 30 players in free agency and through the draft, and you would need more money than the $19 million for sure, but you are capable of taking on that Tua dead cap this year and getting back into the positive by making other roster moves, whether it's extensions, releases, and more. So it's not impossible. Make sure you are subscribed because we will cover you on every aspect of the Dolphins offseason. Coaching search underway, free agency in March, draft in April, OTAs, mini camp, and then guess what? Preseason football and training camp in July and August. Subscribe today. Step number 3, we mentioned free agency. That comes first, early March. I believe March 9th is the first day of free agency this year. You got to bargain shop in free agency. You just got to do it. Now, a lot of people are going to ask me about the quarterback position, and specifically Malik Willis, the Packers quarterback who is going to be a free agent. The obvious connection between him and new GM Jon-Eric Sullivan coming in from Green Bay. I would like to bring in Malik Willis. I would. I have actually watched some of his tape, watched some of his highlights, looked at some of his numbers. I am very, very intrigued with bringing in Malik Willis because I do think he is a very good, fascinating young quarterback with a lot of arm talent and mobility. But the thing is, it has to be on Miami's terms because you do not have a lot of space to do this. Now, I think a 1-year, $12 million contract makes a lot of sense for both sides. That's what Sam Darnold did with Minnesota. That is what Daniel Jones did with Indianapolis. And if Jones doesn't tear his Achilles, he's cashing in with a major payday. And he probably still will. Sam Darnold cashed in with a major payday with the Seattle Seahawks. So there's precedent of people signing this deal and it working out for you. And maybe Miami has the cap space to do that 1-year, $12 million deal if they choose to cut to a post-June 1st and save $30 million in cap space this year in comparison if they cut them with a pre-June 1 designation. Now, at the quarterback position, if you are not signing Malik Willis in free agency, I would rather, after that, go trade for Mac Jones, the backup quarterback who has 1 year left on his deal in San Francisco. Now, who you hire as coach and offensive coordinator will influence the quarterback that you want in that scheme and system. But Mac Jones has shown he's a capable starter. He's a top 32 quarterback in the NFL, only making about $3-4 million this upcoming year. And you could get him for a 4th-round pick potentially in a trade. So if you're not signing Malik Willis, I would absolutely call up San Francisco and try to get a trade done for Mac Jones. Well, I did mention bargain shopping in free agency. Here are some 10 offensive players that I think are all going to sign contracts under probably $6 to $9 million in annual average value. Miami's certainly going to need to add wide receivers. If you trade for Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne should be an absolute must. Those two have an excellent connection back in their days in New England and in San Francisco. But Jalen Naylor's an intriguing guy who obviously Eric Sullivan is seen up close inside the division. Same thing can be said about Braxton Jones. I think Larry Borum is a fascinating re-sign candidate. I want to re-sign Greg Dulcich. Like, there will be options offensively for the Miami Dolphins, that is for sure. And on the defensive end of the field, you got to go after some guys. Eric Stokes is a player that on this list, or isn't on this list, that I think Miami could be interested in. Former first-round pick out of Georgia in 2021 by the Packers when Jon-Eric Sullivan was there. I would also name Inga Rababe. I think I said his name right. Maybe not. An edge for Green Bay as an option. But there's other cheap candidates like Willie Gay being brought back, Christian Roseboom being brought over from Carolina, Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, re-sign Jack Jones or Rasul Douglas. All fascinating options of players that aren't going to make more than $10 million per year in free agency that Miami absolutely could be targeting with limited cap space in March. Final step of the plan. And it's easy to say this, but go best player available in the draft. I do not care about positional value. I do not care about who Miami has on the roster. There is only one position that Miami should not think about drafting. That is running back. Because you have Devon Acham, you have Ollie Gordon, and you have Jalen Wright, all under contract in 2026. It's the only position on the roster you do not even think about drafting. So it does not matter anywhere else. Go best player available regardless of position. And you look at some of these potential prospects Miami could take with the 11th overall pick, you highlight Caleb Downs, who, if he's available, it's hard not to want to take the safety from Ohio State. Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, both could be off the board, but if they're available, I'm intrigued. Like, the good news is there will be very high-level good players available for Miami at pick 11 because Fernando Mendoza is going to go in the top 10. If Dante Moore declares for the draft, he's likely going to go in the top 10. Heck, who knows? Maybe a team will talk themselves into Ty Simpson as well. I do not know. But out of that 10-player list we just showed, you'd imagine 2 quarterbacks go in the top 10, which means 2 of them would be available for Miami with the 11th overall pick. And that would help the Dolphins add a highly valued, coveted, young potential cornerstone piece on the offense or defense. Doesn't really matter a position. But I also don't hate a trade down. Like I talked about it. Miami's not going to have a lot of cap space. They're not going to be able to sign a lot of players in free agency. So how do you combat that? Well, you've got to add a lot of cheap young talent through the draft. So if you trade down from 11 to say, 18 or 19, someone really wants to move up and get an offensive lineman or wide receiver, okay, do it. Because you can get a second-round pick in the future or this year or multiple second and third-round picks. Like, you would have the ability to get more draft capital, more darts at the dartboard, which would then allow you to really improve this roster, infuse young talent. I think a trade down option for Miami makes a ton of sense. Red pen time. You've seen my perfect offseason plan. Grade it for me. A, B, C, D, or F. Final word on today's show as we close it out. You might not like to hear it, and you might have seen my plan. It's a little vague at times. There's not a lot of splash moves. I think you got to expect that. New regime in here, they're just going to try to stick to the basics. Miami's going to be really bad in 2026. This was going to be the case with Mike McDaniel, without Mike McDaniel. It does not matter who is that head coach. Heck, it didn't even matter who was GM. The Dolphins are going to be a 5-6 win team in 2026 or 2026. The truth is, though, everything that you do this offseason should be with the mind of being competitive in 2027. Whether you are making trades to get draft capital, you're creating cap space for 2027, you're signing young players to multi-year deals to help you in 2027, extending players, drafting. Everything will be made for 2027. And I hate to say that this next 365 days are going to be bad and potentially boring for Miami, but it's the God's honest truth. The only thing that I'm focused on over the next 365 days is laying the foundation to the Dolphins roster by hitting on some draft capital and seeing if you could really have any blossoming, up-and-coming, rising young players. And then you strike in 2027 with a lot of draft capital, over $100 million in cap space, with a locked-in vision and plan ready to come to fruition. That'll do it for today's show. More videos every single day, so subscribe and join the channel if you want more Dolphins content. Woo!
Well done.
Thank you.
Varian says trade for Lamar. I'm going to be dead before this team's good again.
That ain't going to happen.
Lamar, not happening. And if you get Harbaugh, the chances are even less.
Right. I don't think it happens. Greater Good says sucking it up until 2020. Heck, I could say 2027. I can. Like, think about, I know this is a very aggressive line of thinking here, guys, but did you watch the Patriots last night? It wasn't pretty, but they got the win.
Yes, they did.
That is a team that was 3-14. 3-14, Coop.
They were bad. They
Last
flipped their
year.
record.
Top. Is it 3 or 4? I can't remember. 4th pick? Will Campbell? Yeah. 4th pick in the draft. And 1 year later, they are in the divisional round of the playoffs. Why? Because they made big-time signings in free agency. They identified who fits their culture, their systems. Milton Williams, Robert Spillane, Jalen Hawkins, Carlton Davis, Morgan Moses, Stephon Diggs.
Questionable.
All worked in their favor. They made good draft picks. I mean, no one gets more out of their current rookies than New England.
No, not at all.
Will Campbell at left tackle. Jared Wilson starts at left guard. I don't even know who they took in the second round. Oh, Travion Henderson, the running back. Their starting safety is a rookie. They got a lot of good young players there, and they did it all in one offseason.
Well, you know
and
what?
then you got the quarterback, obviously, is the most important part.
I was going to say, they got the most important part of the equation, which is a quarterback on a rookie contract.
So, to me, are you able to identify a potential quarterback this offseason somewhere, somehow, and then in 2027, when you have the cap space over $100 million, when you have more draft capital and flexibility, is there the way where you can have that 1 year turnaround where you have a good enough quarterback and you make the right draft picks, you make the right signings in free agency to go from a 5-4 win team in 2026 to a 10-11 win team in 2027? I don't think it's crazy to say Miami could be a playoff team in 2027. They just have to lay the foundation in 2026. And then when the cap space comes to their hands in 2027, they make the right signings and make the right moves.
I like it. And it's hard to fathom that this team is going to be worse next year than it will be this year, but it's just the reality of the situation. It just is. And when you think about this Dolphins team as a whole this season that ended up 7-10, if you looked back on it and you would say, what was the Dolphins record this year? I think you'd think it's a lot worse than it was.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? So, yes, they're going to be bad next year, but hopefully it's a minor setback for a major comeback. Got a couple super chats coming in, by the way. We got Broke as F coming in with the $1 super chat. We appreciate you, but if you're broke, don't
Well, he came in with another $2.
Don't spend your money on YouTube if you're broke, man. But thank you for the super chat. We appreciate you.
He just came in with another one.
Another one from Broke
Would
as
you
F.
give Lamar part ownership to play? No.
No. Lamar is great. He ain't that great.
You also absolutely never give a player ownership.
Even though the NBA is giving LeBron a franchise, I guess it's different.
He's going to be retired by then.
Yeah, true. You never give a player ownership. It doesn't work. Yeah, you just don't do that. Full stop.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Does not happen.
There are players who become parts of ownership groups, like Tom Brady.
Adam says we started all our rookies just saying like New England. Yeah, but the difference is the Patriots started rookies that are good. Like, that's the difference. They drafted Will Campbell. I know he was the 4th overall pick, but he's a average starting left tackle in year 1. Like, we drafted Jonas Avianaya. He was the worst offensive lineman in football.
And that's not an exaggeration, by the way.
Yeah, their second-round pick, Travion Henderson, had almost 1,000 rushing yards in his rookie season, and he didn't even start games until he didn't really get running snaps until week 6.
And he is a receiving weapon out of the backfield. Like
we drafted Kenneth Grant, who, although played much better in the final month and a half of the season, really wasn't that impactful through the first 2 months of the year.
Jason Marshall Jr., disaster.
Yeah, like, you can say we drafted and played rookies like New England, but the difference is that front office identified players much better than the GM and ownership and coaching staff that did it in 2025.
Is it fair to say that the most consistent rookie on the Dolphins last year was Jordan Phillips?
Yeah, no, I think it's true.
And he was fifth round pick. Like, you did not hit on your top end draft picks yet. That's not to say that they can't come to fruition. Like, I think Kenneth Grant obviously showed signs that he can pan out. Jonah, full disclosure, I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a position move. I don't know. But I don't feel optimistic about him.
Yeah, Jermaine says it's coaching. Coaching matters. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
Why do you guys think I said a year ago that I would fire Mike McDaniel on the spot to hire Mike Vrabel? It always sounded like Vrabel was going to New England, but I said multiple times on multiple videos, Mike McDaniel should not get a 4th season in Miami. He should be fired, and the Dolphins should do everything in their power to get Mike Vrabel. Wish they did it. Wish they listened to me.
Rolly for GM?
Owner.
Yeah. I think you could be Jon-Eric Sullivan's right-hand man.
I don't think I could, but I would be a better owner. And I do think that.
You would just fire everybody on this. You would have such a quick trigger, I feel like.
That's not true at all.
You don't think?
No.
Okay.
If I believe they can get it done, I'll stand by them and give them the chance. It's just obvious. You can't say I have a quick trigger because I said Mike McDaniel should be fired. I mean, it was the obvious thing in the world.
It was obvious.
I was a year before everybody else, and maybe you're saying, oh, that would be a quick trigger. Finally misses the playoffs, and you want to fire him?
No, I think you're right.
It was so obvious. So, I don't know. It's possible. Is it likely? No, but it's certainly possible. Certainly possible. And that is referring to Miami being a playoff team in 2027.
They would need a lot to go right.
Listen, you saw with the Commanders too. Like, I hate to be that guy. Like, and I get it. It goes down to the quarterback.
Absolutely.
But what did the Commanders do last year? They made it to the NFC Championship game. Now, it was a declining year this year, but why did they get to the NFC Championship game? New first-year head coach, first time in Washington, Dan Quinn, new GM and Adam Peters, and they drafted Jaden Daniels, and they had $130 million in cap space to go out and sign some defensive players. And when you are able to do that, like, that's why I think 2027 is a year Miami could make the playoffs. If they hire the right head coach this year, they make the right picks in the draft, they create cap space for 2027 to have over $100 million, even if you don't figure out quarterback this year, but you lay the groundwork with good draft picks in the draft, then guess what? You spend $100 million in free agency across different positions. You draft a quarterback in the top 10, which looks like a good quarterback class in 2027, and you are in the playoffs potentially. Not guaranteeing it, but you've just seen it over the last 4 or 5 years. Teams have been able to do it and they're in the same exact spot Miami is in right now. So, not going to happen in 2026. 2027 could happen.
Arch in the 305 has a nice ring to it.
Well, I see people coining awful for Arch already.
I like it.
I don't.
You are an Arch guy, and you will be by the end of the season.
Nope.
No matter what?
Things can change, but I don't forecast it.
You will have the Manning hype by the end of the season.
I don't forecast it. We'll see.
You're not a weatherman.
I can't see the future. Can't see the future. All right, let's get into the final segment on today's live show. Surprise QB trade target. Let's talk about it. It'll be interesting. Tanner McKee, the current backup quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Is he a potential Dolphins quarterback trade target this offseason? I've briefly mentioned this idea in the past, but on today's show, I wanted to react to something coming in from ESPN about a potential trade. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. But let's quickly talk about who Tanner McKee is before we get into the rest. 25 years old, entering the final year of his rookie contract, drafted in 2023, draft 6th round out of Stanford. He's got really good size, 6'6", 231. He started 2 games in his career. Now, both of those starts came in Week 18 of 2024 and 2025 against the Giants and Commanders, respectively, in games that did not matter. But the reason why we're talking about this in a full-length video, rather than just briefly mentioning it like I have in the past, is because ESPN's Ben Solik, in predicting a maybe surprising move, if you will, this offseason for the Eagles, had the Philadelphia Eagles trading McKee to Miami for a middle-round pick, later clarified as a 6th rounder. And that's a move Miami should absolutely contemplate making. But first, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications turned on, because we're dropping daily content. And when the Dolphins ultimately hire a head coach, we'll go live. So have those noties turned on. And if the Dolphins ever made a trade, well, we'd go live too. I'm intrigued with Tanner McKee. I really am. When you watch Tanner McKee in the preseason and in those couple of games where he started, you understand why there are teams around the league that would be fascinated with him as a potential QB option. I mean, you look at his 2 starts in his career, Week 18 in 2024 and in 2025. Obviously, the 2024 start was much better than the 2025 start. Simply put, way better against the Giants than the Commanders. But you also factor in what he did in the preseason this year. Only playing in 1 preseason game, he went 20 of 25 throwing the football for over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions in the opening preseason game for Philly against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's got great size in the pocket. He is an excellent thrower of the football to the boundary. That's where he excels. The anticipation and touch he has to the sideline is something I have come away impressed with in the past while watching him in the preseason. And I really do think the idea of bringing him in for a QB competition with Quinn Ewers is a fascinating idea. I would not be able to tell you right now who is better between Tanner McKee and Quinn Ewers. Now, it's hard to tell you who would be better for Miami next year at this current moment, because I don't know who the head coach is and I don't know who the offensive coordinator is. Once you get more clarity there, you would understand who might be better to run this offensive scheme. But in a pure vacuum, Tanner McKee is a very buy low candidate that could provide massive returns for the Dolphins in 2026. Should and would you trade for Tanner McKee with the Eagles if all it cost you was a day 3 selection? Type Y for yes or type N for no. All options are on the table. No matter if you like McKee or not. I mean, they are. Whether you want to talk about adding a quarterback this offseason through free agency, through the draft, through a trade like this one, Jon-Eric Sullivan and the new head coach will have a lot of different avenues they can go down. But one avenue that I think will remain pretty consistent is the fact that whoever is starting at quarterback for the Dolphins next year in 2026 will be very, very cheap. Whether it is Quinn Ewers' rookie contract, Tanner McKee's contract with 1 year, $1.1 million remaining, a Mac Jones contract who's only making $2, $3, $4 million, a rookie quarterback they draft in the first or second round. Like, you just won't see an expensive quarterback in Miami as the Dolphins try to recover from the inevitable dead cap hit they will take on when they release Tua Tagovailoa. And even if you do not want Tanner McKee, there are other intriguing trade targets out there this offseason. I mean, we've talked about Mac Jones in depth, if we will. San Francisco quarterback, started 8 games this year for the 49ers. San Francisco went 5-3 in those 8 games, including a big win on the road against the Los Angeles Rams. Mac Jones proved this year he is still a top 32 quarterback in the NFL. But there's also intriguing options like Jameis Winston, like Davis Mills, guys who have been starters in the past, who are current backups that maybe those current teams are like, yeah, listen, we'll take a 5th, we'll take a 4th or 6th round pick to get rid of these guys, and Miami can bring them in as their starter for a year, a bridge guy, a mentor to a young rookie they draft, or compete with Quinn Ewers in 2026. We talked about it earlier. I'll talk about it again here. I think you should have clarity soon. Now, how soon? Can't guarantee it. Can't do it. Because you have to hire your head coach first, and then you have to hire your offensive coordinator. But you can't dive deep into potential options for Miami and who fits the best, what the Dolphins should do, until you have an idea of what your offensive scheme is going to be. Right? Like, if you're going to hire John Harbaugh and bring Todd Monken as his offensive coordinator, then you should go get Malik Willis, who we've seen that type of quarterback, Lamar Jackson, operate that offense at a high level. If you bring in Robert Saleh, who brings in a Shanahan McVay-esque offense, well, then that's where Mac Jones comes into part, right? So you have to figure out your head coach, your offensive coordinator first, and then you move on to figure out the best pathway of addressing the quarterback position for 2026. We're going to look at more options here in a second, but today's show is brought to you by GLD, and let's be real here, fellas. Buying jewelry used to be a nightmare, low-quality junk that snapped after a week, or it was insanely overpriced with ridiculous markups. That's why I rock with GLD. You're getting quality pieces that are built to last without breaking the bank. And for a limited time only, new customers are getting an insane deal. When you use code CHAT at checkout, you get 50% off at GLD.com. GLD is an official collab with the NFL, so you can get every NFL team on a pendant this season. They also have official collabs with the NBA, WNBA, MLS, NCAA. Chains and pendants that let you rep what you love. You can also create custom pieces, whether it's iced out chains or a 101 pendant. GLD can bring it to life. We mentioned that collab with the NFL. How about this Dolphins pendant silver chain alongside in studio? You can feel the high quality of it in your hand. Tyreek Hill, former Dolphin, potentially partnered with GLD. Work hard and change the game. For a limited time only, new customers get an insane deal. Use code CHAT to get 50% off at GLD.com. That's 50% off with at GLD.com with code CHAT. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. If you do not want to trade for a quarterback, that is fine. We showed you the potential options out there. Tanner McKee, Mac Jones, Jameis Winston, amongst others. Well, free agent quarterbacks aren't that much better. I think the crop of potential trade targets are better. Obviously, Malik Willis is probably the most fascinating out of all of them. But the trade targets are better than these guys, right? Like, I'd rather trade for Mac Jones, Tanner McKee, Jameis Winston, Davis Mills than sign Tyrod Taylor, Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, Mitch Trubisky. But let's talk about Malik Willis, because a lot of people are going to connect him to Miami. Rightfully so. Like, listen, the GM of the Dolphins came from the Green Bay Packers organization that did not draft Malik Willis. Obviously, Tennessee did, but they made the effort to go trade for him because they identified the potential development and growth within Malik Willis in that system. But money is going to be a deciding factor, man. Miami's not going to have a lot of cap space. What is Willis going to sign for in free agency? Because after his 2 games this year for the Packers, where he came in the first half against the Bears and then started the following Saturday night against the Ravens, he looked like a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. I mean, seriously. Like, I know it's a very limited and small sample size for Malik Willis, but those 2 games for Green Bay looked way better than anything we saw from Tua over the last 2 years. And I really mean that. These are some elite-level numbers and elite-level tape and film Willis put on display. But the thing that I will continuously come back to for Willis in Miami is that it is a 1-year, $12 million deal or nothing if you want Willis to be a Dolphin. It's the same contract that Sam Darnold got when he was brought in to be the starter for Minnesota for a year as they drafted J.J. McCarthy. It is the same contract that Daniel Jones got with the Indianapolis Colts heading into this past season. And although it has worked with those 2 teams, no guarantee it'll work for Miami. But the Dolphins don't have a lot of cap space to work with here, and I'm not going to commit multiple years to Malik Willis in case it doesn't work out this year because I want to retain as much flexibility as possible in 2027. And if it does work out really well and Malik Willis looks like a franchise quarterback and you like what is building in Miami in 2026 with him as your quarterback, well, then you simply just extend him and you leave it like that. So there are a lot of positives to bringing Malik Willis on a 1-year, $12 million contract. It's just all about if Willis is going to be willing to sign that or is he going to try to get something larger in free agency. But what say you? Do you want to sign Malik Willis? Type S for sign or type P for pass. There's the obvious other kind of door you go through here, and that is the NFL draft. Coop, maybe this is a mess up on me. John Mateer has not decided what he's doing yet, right? Which is wild to me as filming this because you would have thought he would have returned to school pretty quickly. But Ty Simpson declared for the draft, even though there's rumors out there that teams are trying to get him back to college. Like, there's not a lot of high-level quarterbacks that could potentially be drafted this year by Miami. Should the Dolphins contemplate taking one in rounds maybe 3, 4, or 5? Yeah, sure. Taylor Green, Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier, they're intriguing to a degree. But if you are trying to figure out who should replace Tua as the quarterback 1 of the future in Miami, I would not look towards the draft this year. Some people will bring up Ty Simpson. Sure, we'll see as time goes on. I would not. I think you either trade for a quarterback, you sign one in free agency, have a QB competition with Quinn Ewers, have it be a bridge year, and then prepare for 2027. Create the cap space necessary, give yourself ample enough draft capital so you can trade up for a specific quarterback you like. It is 2027 or bust with Miami. And it's going to be annoying in 2026 to be as bad as we will be. I'm just going to get ahead of it right now. But we've seen teams like Washington, like New England, make these quick turnarounds from top 5 in the draft to playoffs by nailing the head coach, nailing the quarterback in the draft, and then using the flexibility in free agency to supplement the roster. Miami will have that capability in 2027 if they play their cards right. More on the Dolphins every single day. So if you want more informative and entertaining content, that is, make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right. 3 live shows down.
Yeah, all indications are reporting that Mateer is leaning towards coming back.
Yeah, but
there's not
official.
been an official announcement.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But as I put that on screen, I couldn't remember. Last second confusion.
Yeah, very fascinating.
Most people I see, Axie saying sign, Piss Missile sign, trade for Lamar. Lamar ain't getting traded for. The Ravens ain't trading them, and the Dolphins ain't getting them. Simple as that. Sorry to break that to you. Draft Trinidad Chambliss. I don't think he's an NFL guy, but
Trinidad.
third round, I'd be intrigued.
Yeah, late day 2, early day 3. I'd take a flyer.
Definitely day 2.
I think he's going to end up playing at Ole Miss.
He already got his waiver denied.
They're suing and appealing it. And I think it's going to get granted.
Your sport fucking sucks. It really does. It's horrible.
You have 25-year-olds playing as freshmen in your sport.
Your sport is so bad, dude.
And yours isn't?
It's horrible. There's more issues over there in college football than college football.
Oh, I don't know about that, Jim. There's a lot of issues in both.
Cool.
There's a lot of issues in college football. I'm not here to say there's
Take the blinders off.
Yeah, I am.
You had a kid sign his contract to return to his school.
That's unbelievable.
And then try to go into the transfer.
Oh, I get it.
I don't want to hear anything about my sport.
You guys are signing 25-year-olds as freshmen.
That is worse.
Is it?
Yes. Yes, it is.
You are a known hater of college football, though.
I don't think it's not a fun sport to me. It isn't. It's lower quality football. If I'm going to watch football, I want to watch the highest quality, which is the NFL. Which is why I think it's different in basketball, because I think it's funny to watch bad basketball. It's entertaining to watch bad basketball.
College football is so entertaining.
Sure, but it doesn't move me. And it's just now that it's like a wild west out there, it's lost me completely.
We just grew up differently.
I couldn't care less. Like,
college
I really
basketball
couldn't.
is so the wild west too, though.
Not really.
You can have a whole new team every year.
Because there's only 8 players that play, Coop. That was the dumbest fucking thing you've ever said. Really, it really was.
That you can have a new team every year?
That was the case before the NIL. You think Kentucky was bringing back players? No, it wasn't. Worst take you have ever had. Really is.
I got Rolly fired up, and it's absolutely not, by the way.
Oh, it is.
No, it's not even close.
In college football, you would have players back a decade ago as freshmen stayed with the same program for 3 years. That is almost impossible of happening.
It happens quite a lot.
No.
Just because you're seeing the influx of the transfer portal doesn't mean that some freshmen aren't sticking it out.
3%.
Way higher than 3%.
Way low. It might be lower.
Way higher than 3%.
Way lower.
The Bonnies are going to have a whole new team next year.
Yeah, because that's what happens in college basketball. When you have only 7 players that play. There's a difference.
How many of those 7 are going to be there?
3.
Exactly.
That's the majority of the team, though. Like, you could say, we're bringing back 3 guys from last year. That's like the same team. That's the difference in basketball and football. You bring back 3 players and you supplement them in your portal.
Yeah, and proportionally, that's what football is too. I don't know what to tell you.
I hate college football.
Oh, we know you hate college football. You've made that very clear.
All right, we're going to get out of here on today's live show. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us here. Should have mentioned it. We might be live next Monday night with all that college football talk. Might be live. I think we will be for the college football national championship between Miami and Indiana.
But you hate it.
I do.
Unbelievable.
But I know a lot of you guys are Canes fans, and we might go live on the channel to watch that game with y'all if y'all are interested in it. Either that or I think Miami wins either way. You either get a Miami native Fernando Mendoza winning the Natty or the Hurricanes win.
Absolutely.
Win-win for the Canes. Miami area. So we'll be back live for that. Probably our next live show, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. All right. Peace out, fellas. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll have content going out every day.
Adios.